We're in Acts chapter 18. Acts chapter 18.
Order ma padanya putih hemat du shutio.
We're going to be listening to some of these verses.
Anila ba ite pemetha amaklo si ite hina pe ni dapat tertulang masuklo.
If you remember from last time, Kupalu had been in the great city of Athens, and he spoke, and there was not a lot of good response. There were not many people saved.
Anida ra kesi teman ema the it's Paul, right?
Yes.
Ma kupalu no ha ahe o tau leader ma the do aviku Athens kuno ko he ban ke the a te hodra ka pe ke si chumra lango si no ha ite ke ni date he si no ha twa kripu si ani je ke sa chumra lango si te he no ha o ito ko.
And now Kupalu has gone to another large city called Corinth.
Memete ki ani ki twa kripu o ito no ha the kupalu no ha he just hangi po the aviku ana mi vi atmu mamina Corinth.
This is a city that is very different from Athens.
Ni da Corinth ko the vigo to vi ma ko yana ne da ma vi Athens kuno go.
Athens, you remember, has philosophers there and people who are always looking to talk about the new ideas that they heard.
Ni si tama mane ma vi Athens kuno ma shu who kiesi opo meta shu opo sising shu da prachomre ase mope asen hu da ate se ma te asising ne ne ko.
They thought they were very wise, and so they did not care to listen much to Kupalu.
Mite esi no ha aku chomre o en ne atene hu klo sin ko atene na esi limegla de asingi gla de ai no ahi no ha da Kupalu he isho ko pe esi da chomre lango sin no ha esi ne singi da ko.
Corinth is very different. Corinth was known for its the great amount of sin there.
Manada Corinth kuna ma amudu ke singi lu mi mete ne manda esi vi kuna ma vi shu ma ite te shu te su ami ine ne na ko te su ine ne.
A church was planted there by Kupalu, and there were 2 letters that were written to this church.
Ni da esi vi kuna ma Kupalu ame thothe ma phya sraku ku ko he na ba na ke da Kupalu chara dora ro cinema suka kya se li sin go suka kya na ba.
And in those 2 letters that Kupalu wrote, he had to deal with many different problems and divisions among the people, and simply immorality.
Ni da ba Kupalu ara tada ma ligu no go ha suka kya se na ha ai he ra ri kyam hu da esi vigu de vinma esi thwa se na hu da au plot jilu to go he esi na ma o na o ta phalu ai be mai mi kholo ali ni da ma kholu go no go ba esi tisu ine ne se hu da tisu ma hu da atore to abis hena da pe kiye he could balik closing no go he umiute are to ma asna atina de du ba.
Now we're going to jump down to verse 9 and 10. And when this is played, I want you to listen carefully. This is Yeshu. This is the Lord speaking to Kupalu in a vision.
Kunne na ma pe many dada pring ma pu tio na da ko he na ba ke na ma da ite biaseshu. Did you say God or was it Jesus that talked?
Well, it says the Lord.
Okay.
So, in this case,
I mean, I can say the Lord.
I would say Yeshu.
But can a mother biasa Yeshu kri ma ite ai be ta shi na ku palu no ko ha mai be to to lu ko sana da a do me lu de da pot ko.
Now, as you listen to these two verses, 9 and 10, think about what Yeshua is telling Paul, telling Kupalu, and why is he telling him these things?
You said verse 8 and 9?
9 and 10.
9 and 10, oh. Mapuda na shin. Baba penida kinama ninda tatera ite ma biasa syukrin ko ai be shi ai shoma Kupalu na mai sholu mai te to pana jete chinama mi mete ai sholu na ko. Masisi no singilu mai te.
The Fenu, Kupolumia tea, the Mialu the Turon, Biate Hebeluna.
Say, Seteme, O Kukiaten the Hebe teme, O Sutukru teme, Mete Hero, Vau Kudunane, Rau mi piame Setiana net preto, Mete Hero, Kayau bi vi it vi akun de hima. Brother azu inya ivanuma au ro laha pun.
Everything that is written in the Bible is important, and there's a reason for each thing.
Nida lisa kuna mamba peni dapat te klote bebe ko hema phu to klote bebe sana ite pibe de dunia mete ne ma ale sope o to chutu sana da bese shu ramada lisa ku.
As I read this, I thought, why is Yeshua telling Kupalu not to fear?
Mina ba una sra pa ba po kene ma una satani ko memete da biase na hai shu Kupalu na da te shi chemi.
He also says to him, Yeshua says to Kupalu, I am with you, and no one will hurt you in this city.
Ni bana ke mite biase shukri na shu Kupalu ko he da lo te shi chemi mite he na ma ve o phun ne ve to kan ne to ba da vigo de vina ma ki me che chen na auto preto.
Now think about what we have learned already about Kupalu's ministry.
Ona tani ke kya sa me ko he da Kupalu da rakhe a he to vigo de via he hotaraha ke na ko he a mi kraitina.
In one place, he was stoned, and they thought he was dead. Maybe he was, but then he got up. He was stoned, maybe to death.
Sana da rakhe vigo de vina ma ke si a vi mesalo jana losi ko he am pitene na ma saga Kupalu asaga ke mitene ma asana avi na lo na wa asana asa ahira lisa ko mana ko thok sen ko.
In Philippi, he and Kusila were beaten and thrown into prison.
Wala vi Philippi ko na ma Kupalu na kusila na ke pulu na pa de lo da puku.
And remember, at midnight they prayed and they sang.
Mana pe bidu ma ko heda ba mokia ke ane ma Kupalu na kusila na ma una ku chabe to te asovi de lisa langosi.
In Thessalonica, there was a riot in the city because of him.
To bada hapo da bingi Thessaloniki na ko bana ken ma ki yesi atesiplo dunne na wa asana ami me ma mimite Kupalu he hodara pe esi choma ngosi na ki yesa siplo dunne ne asana uheni te sana esti ape to asana ish holu riot ma himi riot madara ke pe sima thare ma ki yesi oda ba museum ka chasi na pum mak klot ke ma to chu si na ko sarap.
In the next town, Berea, the same thing happened.
Wala heavy ngi puda vi Berea kuna ma asa ka kya sabe sarap ya ko sab kasasa.
After all the beatings and danger that Kupalu had been in, why would Yeshua be telling him now, don't be afraid?
Ni ona da pe me ka kya sa da vida rosi ne ma ona Kupalu no ha akabe no e ne ta shi si na ko he na to ve kun ne ve ma da ite kupalu ha to da vi kore ku no ve tu ve kun ne ve ma da bia se ai sholu mete sana te lo te shi sheme astena tu i sholu kun ne mete kha be no en ne da ke si tho ko
why might Yeshua have been telling him now? Why might he have been encouraging Kupalu and telling him not to fear now? Why now?
ni me te ni me ko ha da kupalu a the chocolate bo na ma a kha be te she si na ma oi ne a kha be no ne ma ma na a tu ha to ba a to phu ve me te bia se shukrina a he sholu ba view ba vi da all lo te shi shepa me and I sholu kun ne me te
What might be an idea? What might be a reason?
si te ni me ko me te bia se shukri a tu hi sholu lu kun ne me da lo te shi she me na ko shok sa ta si te ni me na ko
Why?
sana me te da kupalu na chocolate bo na ko he bia se shukri na singi ga na da akhabe no en ne da te shi te she si pa singi ma na ai sholo da khelu to me te da lo te shi she me ve o phu o tu da ne pa ai sholo da khelu to me te ai sholo da he to vi ba to vi me te no ow
Kupalu had been always bold to speak the gospel, and he did not fear the beatings and the imprisonment and the riots.
ni na pe singi ko kupalu ne ma te primo hu da a te she no ko te to ko he da he ke as is hon ne lu be asi me she ne lu be a vilu na lo si be khabe no to batte be ko engi na ma alo be is ho na chom la ngo si ne ma a he bu ko he a si she ko te to
So, what might be a reason for Yeshua to have to comfort and encourage Kupalu now?
me no ha me te da u ke ya te pre da a te si she no ko te to ma na da me te bia se shu krina a hi sholu ne da te lo te si she me ve phu ve te de na ne pa a sholu ne ko
You know, there is other encouragement that Yeshua does for Kupalu in this chapter.
da ba atama ku na ma pe me tha en ne da ba chom a bia se na ko da me te kupalu ange alo hi sholu me te sa na mi chwa che lu me te hu da alo te si she pa to ange na ko o en ne
Would you play verse 2 and 3?
chapter 18
Yeah, verse 2 and 3. It talks about these two this Judapu couple, man and wife.
ni kun ne pe ni da da amma phu ni na sio ko he bo na ke na mai shu da beautiful si amena ve ai kya
รออาเจเมียทิตาสืนายุดาพูดเปรเดอร์อามวยนาเพอากุลาอีบิเนอร์เดโพเพอากุลาอีเนออาอุปเจเลียเดอวิปอตูรอเอนาอเมมือพริจิลาฮาตือเซเลฮามุปาเปรบิเนอร์เปรคุยดูคุกลอดีเฮตาอางโงนาลอยุดาพูดเฮเนอเบทิจูแกลอปลีบีวิรุเมอากุเยเดคุยเฮตาอังูผู้เออากูอาคิรอเพอากูลาอีนาอเมมือพริจิลาที่เจือกาเดอิตาลีเกกูรอเฮียเตเลเฮียบีเอเปรรอคูปอลูเจเมียทิตาสนาเอซีรอคูปอลูโอเกนาเอซีบิเนรออเมโรเกเตนาเอซีเมเตเฮรอคูปอลูเนอาเบเอนีเปรอาเซทูเปรนาa me lesu I Cristiana me na vesenye I me ine pre. Yuda puma.
After Kupalu came from Athens, where there were very few converts, now he comes to Corinth and he meets this man and wife.
ni da ke ba kupalu opada vi Athens ku na ko he da ba kia pre tha ke krifusina opti ba ko he mana kun ne ma he to da vi ku te vi mina Corinth ku ko vi hange vi ba a he metha shu beautiful mina vesina
They are believers, and Kupalu mentions them in some of his letters.
ni an kia beautiful mina ve na sina na ma da preji chom lang no ko he da ba ku palu asuka kya se li sinema a he chok pa ka na mina vere kya tki
What an encouragement it is for Kupalu to find these believers and he can stay with them and work his craft. They are tent makers and he has a skill of a tent maker also.
ninda ba ku palu nge na ma asiplo na ma asana amunya lu ko he me te na ma a ha to da ba vi kret ku no ha he ma tha shu preju chomra la ngo sin na to pa da u preju chomra jur phu si sin na na ha esi mi te mi che ma hu da mi the ma hi sana da ma dok lo sing ni no ko sana pie cho le bo na tha thu da mi the hi pe ta sin hi no ma ku palu no mi che ka ka
After Kupalu's so many problems and beatings and sufferings, isn't it nice, isn't it encouraging for him to be able to live and work with these two believers?
ni mena te ni mera ku palu ngi na ko he da ke si na ma a te chocolate bo no ha yen ne pe lu ngi ko si ko ha te shu te she si ki yes mi si she lu ona bikle ta pha ali te she in ne ko na kun ne na he to da vi ko vi no ha ai me tha shu te preji chom la ngo to ba a u mu re ka le du ko ka be sana a te si plo na ma amu ko ne lu ki
In verse 5, there is another encouragement for Kupalu.
to da ite ma phu nya na ko ba na kin ma da ku palu a nge a te si plo mu re a kin ma u pa
Kupalu has been waiting for Kusila and Ku Timothy to come and join him. Now they have joined him.
ni ba na ke ku palu na ma u po ite ku sil la he o he o te ga selu na ko he ba na ke o po nya o po lu ke na kun ne na ma ku sil na he to ka
Would you play verse 5?
ma phu nyan
Tilana kutimsui ode Macedonia ke te chura a hiate de kupolu o akene kupolu die la laple a te shu te kede a ku he so de nya pe una te sakru mila ariakia ra akia a sera a he so de nya lepe yuda pu te hina yeshu ma kri ema prede chomria nutia luna de akumishi pleka preluka yanu te preha a he punu de upo te pre amesenyi.
What happened in Athens with very little converts, that was a discouragement for Kupalu.
ni mena da pe mena da vi Athens ku na ma me te ku palu no ha he ho ta ra tho ko na da ki yesi a tho ke kripu a ji ga che a ji ke chom la ngo si na opti si lu no ha sana da ku palu ngi na ma si pro pya ka ko
But now he is living with those two believers, and Kusala and Ku Timothy have come.
mana da ba a he to da vi script ku no ko he ba na ke na ma a he o te ga na kripu sin na pre ji chom la ngo si na to pa mana ke na ma ku sin la na ku Timothy na ha a he o te ga se ha na ku palu ha ko
Kupalu had been preaching in the synagogue, as he usually did, and he is getting a lot of opposition from the Judapu there.
ni sana da ku palu na cha vi ku ba te phote be ko he ku cho be da le ba ite jur fu si te sra ku na ko he ba na ke he to da Corinth ku he isho I be shi gna jur fu si na ha da jur fu si na ha asini da to ka sana ona sana I ho chana ku palu ka
But now the two men come that he has been working with and suffering with and struggling with.
muna kunne ke na ma da ku palu akasha na ma ke o sin na ba ke sin na ma da ku palu cha to ba ter phote ma cha pak lu wa ate she no ite ne ma ka bino ka sana hu da SCC ku ba so sin na sin na ma sin ni ka na ku palu ate ri kya ona cha to ka lu ko na
And in this verse, we see that when they came, Kupalu was even more excited now to preach the gospel.
thôi đó bênนี้đã bênหนึ่งนะมาเป็นสิ่งนี้ก็ให้มีเตคูปลูคูปลูแม่เธออะคูปซอสิเฮตก็รู้นะว่าสนาเดอะไรอีโชจอมแรงละงสินะมาอุณาสิคริสต์ลอลปุ๊บจะปากก็
Now, another thing too. A wonderful church was planted here in Thessalonica.
อันว่าอุปถัมภ์เจอเดวีเตสละนายกากูนก็บันนักเคนมาสนาสระอุกตเมมารักอีคริฟูสระกูก็
But Kupalu had to be hurried out of there because there was such a riot in the city.
นี่มันนะว่าคูปลูอุปถัมภ์เตสละนิกาวีกูนก็บันนักเคเอสิสระอุตเมอะไรก็มันนะอีคูปลูมิเตกีเอสินะสิมิเชคูปลูนะว่าคูปลูบิกเล็กที่ก็
So Kupalu had to leave these new believers while they were in great persecution.
เมื่อว่าเดจูรุฟูซีเตเหอนาตื้อทอยปะคริฟูว่าอีเตบันนักเคนมาชื่อมูเดอีเตกีเอสิมิเชนเนี่ยคริฟูซีก็ให้บันนักเคคูปลูเนี่ยนะมาเมเตมีเตคูปลูนะมาคริฟูนะฮะกีเอสินะสิมิเชลูนะคูปลูนะบิดเดเกคริฟูอาเซซิเตเหบันนัก
He worried about them.
อาจารย์อาจจะเบคุเบกยากันเนี่ยปีเดคริฟูซิงเย่แต่เหคริฟูอาเซซิเทียนก็
And what Kupalu did was, I don't want to get too complicated here, but Timothy had, it looks like, come down to Athens, and Kupalu sent him back up to Thessalonica to see how they were doing, to see how the new believers were doing.
He says Timothy, right?
Timothy.
นี่มาตัวประเดี๋ยวลิเซ่กุนมาสนะเปมีเตคูปาลูนะว่าไอเตอาสนะอาเบคุเบกยากันเนี่ยเปคริฟูซีเดเตสลานิกากุนก็เฮบานะเคเดคูทิมตีอาเฮตัวเดแอธเนส์อาเคนะว่าคูปาลูอาสุกคยากาเซคูทิมตีก็เซนะอาซิโนอาซิซิงเงก็เดคริฟูซีโอเดเตสลานิกากุนมามิวเตนอาสุกคยากาเซคูทิมตีก็
We're going to find out what happened here, because Kupalu wrote 2 letters to this church in Thessalonica.
คุณเนี่ยนะมาเป็นแม่ทัพก็ให้เด้อบไอซีดอเตสลานิกาคุณมาทำมีทอดเทใครเตมีเตมาคูปาลูอสุกคยากาเซลีนัมบะอสุกคยากาเซดามาดอวีเตสลานิกาคุณก็
Turn to 1 Thessalonians chapter 3.
มาเตสลานี
Yeah. 1 Thessalonians chapter 3.
เตสลานีเอามาต่อเต Is it the Old Testament?
Oh no, it's the New Testament.
Okay.
It's one of the letters of Kupalu. It's right after
เอาเตสลานีเรลตบะ
right after Colossians.
เบอร์คาลอสเซบิงินะ This is chapter
3.
Maducio.
Would you play verse 1 and 2?
นี่ดารามาพูเตอร์นั่งยิน
su de ki de du nu be kya be pa cho to aku aki be ku kya ho bi vi ase aku I ho be be lia kya pe se plo phu nu ro pe su lia khu ti me se de si o ema be pu ya de pre ro a thu cho maria pre me te phu te pre a me te ke te na pe Rai so de nya pe una kriya te sekrimila ari akya sia pu akudi he di re ni si ro akusha kroni si te zite nya akye ne ro besulia edesi o
So Kupalu sent Timothy here to find out how they were doing.
นี่บาคูปอลูนะฮะสุกะแคกเซคูเตมิตีก็เฮอนุกะแคกเซลูเดวีเตสลานีเมเตเนมาคูปอลูนะซิซิงเงกันนะเดคริปูซีอะเทเซนเตเฮซินะมาอเมใครเตกนะซิซิงเงเอเซริกัตกิก็
Now remember, he's writing to the Thessalonica believers.
มันเป็นตัวมาก็เฮเดบาคูปอลูสุเฮลีนะมาสุเฮราชูเดมาเดเตสลานีพูซีมาคริปูซีเตเฮนก็
would you play verse 6 and 7?
Mapu shunanyo.
Manaro kunyaye kutimese odasi oro akatukisa odo pe oho ro akadenya pepe na terite kiada amote he ahele pepe na site nyana site mote he ariakia tieto ahele pepe na sisane tia bepe pu te putoro Zio na te sele popu tuto sine sumia ti kunya tope pu pene sumia ti sine adunya liope pepunu unura buyasi bi pekya beto te pya te sede adu azana te chete tilo pliye te he aketonuro Sizi isele nipa kriya kuaki
This is the message that Timothy brought back to Kupalu.
Nida ba peninda nima da Kupalu aku Timothy na he ka show se ma Kupalu ko.
Kupalu was thrilled, so happy that they're doing well, they're okay.
Nina Kupalo ngena ha amune nelo siplo si krisi lo cha mete ne mada kripu si a pre ji chamango si da Thessalonica kuno ha ite ate so pasore na o eno to go he sana amure ka duwe ha si ji shokolo duwe ka be si.
So here in Corinth, Kupalu is now greatly comforted to know about the believers in Thessalonica.
Nikune Kupalo ha to da Corinth viguno go he da siplo kuno ma amune ne mete da ani ho ka ha da prejit chamranga lango si da Thessalonica kuno go he da esi terji pa chamranga ngo wa mana esi temo re ka de ha akui chobe shoko de na chamre na asingi Kupalo singi na amune lu siplo.
Now I want to ask you again, why do you think Yeshua in this vision spoke, why might he have spoken to Kupalu to encourage him?
Mena pesingi te de katiki na ha mimete kunne na ha biase ai sho Kupalu na da le mether ke na go ha ai sho na da o te si sheme ai sho no.
Anywhere? I was, well, in this verse, he says, don't be afraid. He said, don't stop preaching the gospel. He says, I am with you, Kupalu. And, well, just do that.
Ni da bunu penida da ke klono go ma sana biasa ai show Kupalu go hina ro te chena ma hina te si sheme na chena ma etana ne ite iswa chuma ngo sinema o kome to paso te chena ha ve o te ne pa.
And he also says, no one will hurt you in this city, and I have many people that will be converts in this city.
To biasa ai show na te mite hene ma da Wasana ba at the poor kinema. What was the first part?
No one in this city will hurt
Okay.
you.
Mamitene mada vigo the vinama ki premishes in an ma o the preto manager the genoma da upreji chamalangosi ba vigo the vinama o in a nedipet or in a nedipa.
Kupalu at this point needs encouragement.
Ani mitene mada heto kunne akina mana Kupalo ngena ma alone ne ahuda mada ite abe asiplon ho abe si isore pore rek sa chama lango sino ko kasana da abe de doake to be siplo pya to kina.
As I studied this week, I was speaking to Betty about it.
Ani ona srap haba at aklono ha at ma ko no ha te ona srai show ka sema your wife Betty, right? Ona show na da the ite ame na ko
And she said something very wise.
no wala ame na hai shoka kya salu te chida ite ama asana limen ne na ko
She said, people, believers, are not machines. There is a limit to their strength.
ni da ame na mai chulo ko ha mi te da pe he ku pu si be kri pu si be ko ha na pe na ma he ku pu we pe ma sana hu se si ma to ko he mi te sana pe mi be batte pe kha be batte na ma au gudi ko
Think of all the things that are bothering Kupalu. Concerned about new believers in persecution.
me te ni me da ku polo ngi na ko ha da ngi na ma ta lu te ni krai mai te si chen ma te ngi ti no e lo ko sana ra le je na ma asena si chen ne pe da kri pu si ngi da Teslani vi gu na ko
He just had a discouraging ministry in Athens.
to ba da ban na ma da te vi Athens ku na ma a ho da ra ne ne ba te be kri pu si ya o e pe lu to asena thwa ke kri pu si na o e pe lu to no ma asena na si plon ma si pro pya ke ka
Yeshua knew that he needed real encouragement.
Menata da sana Jishu biasa shu no asingi na kuna kena ma ku pallo ngi na ate de ni su sau ine ne a siplop chan ne no ha da biasa shu na be memo o reka sta ku pallu no ha biasa singi ko
He gives him two wonderful believers to live with and work with.
mena ha da biasa shu no ha a da he ku pallu na da kripo sin na da a au tek che ka lu
He gets a wonderful report from Timothy about the Christians in Thessalonica.
to ba da ale te ni su san ne da kripo si da Teslani ku no ha ani hu ka kya se ha da ku Timothy ai shu ka kya se lo ha ko da kripo si au da Teslani vi ku no ma o mo re ka du ve ai shu lu
And Yeshua knows when we need encouragement too.
mena da sana pingi ma pate asha ke pate da pingi na ma pesi plogu na ma te apya ke pate de khete to ba pilu ninda ka se da are ato angi na pe usi krisi lo ke sa ke pate de khete ne ma biasa shu asni ko
Yeshua knows when we come to the end of our strength.
mena yeshu na singi ko he da pingi na ma o te de pate a khete na ma singi ko